Welcome to Gen X Quenched. This is the channel where we talk about things for Gen Xers, people who are in their 45s, 50s, loving life, looking to that next stage of life. And one of the topics we always like to talk about is potentially being expats. And today we have a special guest. I will let her introduce herself. Guest, would you like to introduce yourself? And then I'll talk about how we know each other.
Absolutely. Well, I am Erica Hill, and I am an expat. I live in Panama full time. I am happy to say that I like to think of myself as the person who every single day is a Saturday.
Yes, Sabado.
Yes.
Sabado.
Sabado.
Saturday, every day.
Todos los días.
Every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And just for our audience, I will let you in on a secret. I met Erica, formerly, I guess I would say back in 1994 when I was a young credit analyst at National Bank of Detroit, also known as NBD. And Erica was an employee at GM, and we both went to business school at SBI at the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University on the highest of Seven Hills in Tallahassee, Florida. So we go way back, and ironically, we kind of reconnected. What was that? February of last year. We both were ironically
2024.
2024. For those of you watching this, but we both went to a Black Expats in Panama tour, not knowing each other were going to be on there. But shout out to Charlotte Van Horn, who has a fabulous business that connects Black expats and exposes them to Panama. But they do a couple of get to know your people on your tour group. Shout out to Black Expats in Panama number 26, our class. So shout out team. But we went online, had a couple of calls, and I saw Erica Hill, and I was like, Erica, what are you doing here? And she's like, what are you doing here? So that's kind of how we reconnected, and she's actually in Panama living there now. But just wanted to talk a little bit about your experience in terms of living in Panama, and what was the biggest thing for you in terms of, why did you take the tour? Why did you decide that Panama was it versus other countries you were looking at?
Sure. So, well, I got to take you back first, right? To answer the question, I got to take you back. So when I started working at GM, as you mentioned, in 1994, my goal was to retire at 50.
Okay.
So
and you were 20 something probably.
I was 20 something then, but I always said, I want to retire at 50. Wow. Why 50? I don't know, but that was always my goal. When I was 49, actually 2 days before my 49th birthday, unfortunately, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Okay.
So I had to put 50 on pause, right? Because I obviously had to focus on living, and knocking cancer back and crossing over to the survivor side, which is where I sit now. So I am a survivor.
Praise God.
Since May of 2019.
Yes.
So I then said, so once I sort of got to the other side of cancer, I said, okay, well, I want to retire at 55.
Right.
Okay.
Right. 62, 63, 70, which is out of the question for me. Like I was like, okay, 55. And so at the time, right, after sort of my cancer situation, I was 52.
Okay.
And I knew that at 52, 53, 55, 57, I needed to retire to a place where I could afford healthcare, right? Because quality healthcare is critically important to me.
Yes.
And so what that meant was I was going to have to leave the US. Okay. So I started researching, well, where could I retire? So, I did the whole Google search, who has which countries have the best healthcare, which countries have the best healthcare that you can afford out of pocket and those sorts of things. And being the graduate of SBI that I am, I put together my scorecard, right? I had all the things that were going to be important to me. I had 10 criteria. And, Panama certainly came up in many of the searches. So did Portugal, Costa Rica, and, and the list sort of goes on. I honestly evaluated 26 countries.
Wow. From an internet search, at least
from initially. An internet search, initially, just from an internet search, because my thought was, well, if it didn't rank based on my criteria in my top, as one of the top 5, then there was really no point of going there or
Right.
even talking to someone that lived there.
Mhm.
If these things that I just assumed, and I did take what I read on the internet as fact,
Okay.
right? I did take it as fact because I used multiple sources and did all of
Right.
those things, right? So Panama, Mexico, were in Costa Rica, ultimately were in my top three, were my top three.
Okay. Yeah.
I again Google, Google is my friend. So I'm searching and I ran across Charlotte Van Horn, right on Facebook and the Black expats in Panama. And so I did the tour.
Okay.
And I did the tour honestly thinking, is Panama going to be the place for me?
Okay.
And
I
you're
didn't
still
think it was,
working full time
I'm still
during
working
this
full time,
discovery
right?
phase.
But again, I got a plan to be out by 55. So I'm saying, well, let me go ahead and
Right.
'cause I'm not one of those people. God bless the people that are, but I can't do something. I can't move sight unseen to a whole nother country.
Right.
I did that in the US, no problems, but I can't do that. So I wanted to go and experience it and just understand, how do I feel? Does it feel right to me?
Right.
And when I stepped off the plane,
Mhm.
I'm be real honest with y'all. I saw this gentleman.
Okay.
I'm guessing he was about 6 feet tall, athletic build.
Uh-huh.
He was an airline or airport worker. He was, out on the tarmac. And he just happened to turn around and I saw his face.
Mhm.
And I said, oh my, Panama might just be the place, right? This is gonna be okay. It's all kinds of eye candy. Okay. And then, I through the tour, being exposed to different areas and different people, I was pretty much sold on Panama. I had lined up a tour for Costa Rica as well, because Costa Rica was my close second.
Right.
But then when I read that Panama is less expensive than Costa Rica, one, and two, when I realized, I actually looked at the map and I
Mhm.
realized that all the areas where I really wanted to live in Costa Rica were 6 hours away from
The hospital.
the world-class medical
Oh,
Yes.
facilities that I want to be associated with. That kind of took Costa Rica off the map for me. And so it became Panama. It was really an easy decision for me. My heart told me that Panama was the place to be.
so you didn't go to did you go to Costa Rica?
I did not.
Yeah.
I did not.
What
I
about
did
Mexico?
not.
You mentioned Mexico. Had
I've
you
been
done
to,
any discovery there?
I had done, I lived in Houston and Dallas. So I spent lots of time in Mexico and just through the years been to different places in Mexico.
Right.
Although Puerto Vallarta was the place in Mexico that I was the most interested in. I've never been there.
Okay.
But after coming to Panama, there was really no need for me to go.
Okay.
So that one trip, 5 days, 6 days, that 1 week, it really sealed the deal. But you had done your homework before getting to that point.
Correct.
Before
And
coming.
I also extended my stay. So I stayed after the tour ended
Okay.
and met with various medical professionals just to ensure that the healthcare is as good as I'd read. Right. So I met with an oncologist, I met with an endocrinologist, I met with the equivalent of a primary care or internal medicine doctor, right? Because again, that's highly important to me. And so I wanted to actually sit across from these individuals and understand their approach to
Right.
care, right? And just to make sure that it was something that would work for me. And it does.
And that's important for anybody watching. I think that to go the extra mile, that whatever for you, healthcare was a thing, but I imagine there are people where schools and education,
Yes.
and that if you go to these places and have a tour or something structured, if there still is a gap for something that's important to you, to do the work, make the appointments, and stay an extra
Yes.
couple of days to really get those things. So that's really smart of you and good advice for somebody else, that whatever is going to be a big thing for you in your quality of life in these other countries, to do the extra, go the extra step, go the extra mile.
Absolutely. Highly recommend.
Yep.
And I would also say along the healthcare lines, they have a Johns Hopkins affiliated hospital in Panama City. So again, for
Correct.
Americans, they're familiar with that brand name. It's one of the outstanding hospitals in the country, in our country here in the USA. And they also have an affiliate down in Panama City. And I also read recently they're taking Medicare or Medicaid health insurance. So for Americans that transition down there who have that. So
Correct.
that's important. And veterans, US veterans can get medical
Correct.
coverage for injuries that they had while serving. So lots of medical advantages for Panama City.
Mm-hmm. So picking up,
Absolutely.
since you're going to take us pretty much on this journey from then to there. So you finish the tour, you have your conversations, you head back to the US. What's that process from probably early March of last year? What do you do then?
So I immediately start the process. Well, take a step back. I met with the attorney while, as part of the tour. I scheduled a more in-depth meeting with her when I got back to understand to go into more detail about the different types of visas.
Right.
Right. And just to really decide which path that I want to take.
Mm-hmm.
Once we did that, I started the process of gathering all of my documents that are required to be considered for residency, right? So I would say I started, let's just call it mid-March.
Okay.
Right? So from mid-March, I went back to Panama the last week in July, first week in August.
Okay.
Right. And then and that trip was to get my temporary residency card.
Okay.
So on that trip, I stayed 5 days, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I met with my attorney first thing that Monday morning.
Mhm.
On that Wednesday, I had my temporary residency card. I also used that time to do some additional tours, but of neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
Right. To try to start to figure out where might I want to live.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
Um,
And this is concentrated, in case we didn't say it specifically, in Panama City, Panama.
Correct.
Right.
In Panama City, Panama,
Mm-hmm.
which has, multiple neighborhoods, each of which has its own sort of personality.
Yes.
Right.
There's pros and cons of each. And while the tour did a great job of helping me to understand I want to live in Panama City,
Mm-hmm.
I needed to do a little bit more work on, well, where exactly in Panama City do I want to live?
Right.
Because for me, a lot of expats, they come and they're like, well, I'll stay here for 6 months and I'll move over here for 6 months. Ooh, I would be traveling, with 10 to 12 suitcases and my dog. And so I'm not really trying to pick up and move all this stuff every 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was in late July, early August.
Mhm.
So then I went back in November, right before the Florida Classic, where we did beat up on those Wildcats. So if the Wildcats, if you're watching, it is what it is. Sorry.
It's above me. Yeah.
Now, right? And so I went back in mid-November, to get my permanent residency card. And I remember that because when I left Panama, I flew straight to Orlando for the Classic, right?
Mhm.
So I came back again with my card in hand. I stayed 4 days, similar to the first trip, where in 2 days, it took basically 2 days
Mm-hmm.
of being in country, and then I went and picked up my my permanent residency card. So at that point, I was a permanent resident
In November.
in November.
So
Correct.
for you,
Great.
this is like from February to November within the course of a year, as far as now you're still living in, where are you, Dallas?
Dallas.
Dallas.
Yeah, you're still living in Dallas, but pretty much in the course of inside of roughly 8 months, you've gone from, you made the decisions and made it happen.
Correct.
Mhm.
Correct. Now, when I started, I was still gainfully employed,
Okay.
right? But
Mhm.
and during that period of time, my employer decided that my services no longer fit with the direction they were going,
Right.
which was an absolute blessing for me.
Right.
Because if I'm being completely transparent, I was over it. I was burnt out corporate America. I was
Right.
ready to do something else, i.e., exit corporate America. I had a plan, right, where I was going to do that by 55. So now now I'm 54. So I'm like, okay, I just got one more year, just one
Right.
year. But I was blessed in many ways. But one of my blessings is that when my employer made that decision, I got a very nice severance package,
Nice.
Okay.
which basically bridged me to 55 and a bit beyond.
Okay.
Mhm.
Very good.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Very
So it just everything worked out. So I wound up leaving the US in December as opposed to May. So December of 2024 as opposed to May of 2025.
Mhm.
Outstanding. Hey, let me go back a little bit. When
Sure.
you were deciding which visa, I remember there was some debate for you. Were you going to do friendly
Yes.
nations versus pensionado? What was the tipping point for you in terms of making that decision?
And it briefly explain for anybody that might be watching,
The difference.
the differences of the options that you were looking at.
Sure. So there are several options, but the options that made the most sense for me was friendly nations, of which there's two options. So one option with friendly nations is where you buy property for $200,000.
Mhm.
And when you purchase that property, you then become eligible to get a temporary to get a temporary resident to get your temporary residency.
Mhm.
Right? Your visa type is friendly nations, but you get a 2-year temporary residency. The second friendly nations option is where you put $200,000 in the equivalent of a CD in a
Mhm.
Panamanian bank,
Okay.
right? So it has to stay there for 3 years.
For 3 years. Yep.
Right? Now you do earn interest on it, right? And at the time, I think it was either 6 or 8%, right? And it is compounded. So your money is still growing,
Right.
although we could argue if you could do better if it was in a different investment.
Mhm.
Right.
And
Excuse me,
that's
the
still
other-
a temporary
and
resident.
it's still a temporary residence. So with both of those options, you get a 2-year temporary resident visa.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, you are you get temporary residency for 2 years is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
There is actually another option, which is if you buy something that was $300,000 or more, within 30 days, you become a permanent resident.
Right.
So it's the
That's
price.
that red carpet visa.
Yeah.
It is that
very-
red carpet
Hey,
thing,
Big
which-
money.
Yeah, big money.
Right, big money. And I was thinking about it. But then I was like, no. And then the third option is the retirement or retiree visa, the Pensionado visa. And for that one, at the time, I don't know if the requirements are still the same, but you had to be able to prove that you get at least $1,000 of
Net.
income US
Yep.
per month for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
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 Right. So you can't just be like, hey, here's my 401k. I'm just going to draw. That doesn't work. It has to be guaranteed money.
Right.
So they kind of think about it as pension for life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Pension, Social Security, annuity,
Yes.
something like,
Disability payment.
disability, something that's not
Disability,
right.
Something that is for life.
Mhm.
And that the only way it stops is you die, basically.
Mhm.
And so I got to give a shout out to Al Barnes, right? And a fantastic gentleman, fantastic human, wonderful person,
Yes.
but an even better financial planner, advisor.
Right.
And so, working with him, I opted to look at an annuity,
Mhm.
which does qualify.
Mhm.
Right. And so I did the annuity, and that annuity qualified. And so for me, it was a matter of, do I take the $200,000 and put it in an annuity, or do I take the $200,000 and put it in a CD and lock it down for 3 years? I opted for the Pensionado, so the annuity, for a couple of reasons, but the main one being the discounts
Yes.
that are associated with that retiree visa. So for example, I get, as long as the flight originates in Panama, 25% discount on airfare. And that's any airline that includes Delta, United, American, as well as, the Panamanian carriers. There's anywhere from 15 to 25% off of medical things, prescriptions, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, it just made more sense.
Right.
To go that route, because I figured I would make up the interest
Right.
and discounts for airfare. Like I'm
Right.
going to Ghana, right? That was a significant discount on my trip to Ghana.
Very good.
So does the Pensionado, so do you have temporary resident status or permanent resident status?
Permanent, and I'm sorry, and that was the other thing, right? I wanted permanent residency, and so I was able to get that in 6 months with the Pensionado visa. So it's the cheapest visa at the time. It was the cheapest visa option. It was the quickest path to permanent residency. And it's the one that offered discounts.
So does it have, just from a standpoint, because not at retirement, is there any age minimum for that Pensionado? I'm not sure. Or is it really just the showing that you've got income for life of at least whatever the current amount is?
If you're Panamanian, to get the benefit, at the time, it's women at 55 and men at 58.
Okay.
Non-Panamanian, there is no age limit. It's really about if you meet the requirements, including the income requirement.
So you got a lot of young people in the military. They retire at 40 and they would qualify because they would get their veteran pension
benefit.
Exactly.
and disability potentially. So yeah, it's a lot of
Now,
young people or cops.
Right. When I go certain places and use my Pensionado, they're like, oh, and I'm like, here's my cedula. Give me my discount, right? Because they'll look at me and they'll say, in Spanish, I don't qualify. I'm not old enough. Thank you for the compliment, but actually I do.
Got my card. Membership has its
Don't leave home without it.
Exactly.
Very good.
Very good. Very good.
So let me ask this question, and you kind of hinted on it when your plane landed. You saw this fine brother out on the tarmac, but as an African American, what's assimilation like in Panama? Like, do you feel like you stick out? Like you go to some Latin American countries where you may feel, brothers and sisters, we may stick out a little bit, but what's the feeling like or the vibe in Panama?
That's one of the things that I love about Panama is that until I open my mouth with this gringo accent, no one knows if I'm Panamanian or not, right? So the three of us, look as if we could be Panamanian, right? So I think that assimilation, if we want to use that term, is natural here. The Panamanians are just wonderful, warm, welcoming people.
Yes.
Right. And it's such a privilege, honestly, to be here and to be in a place where I feel fully embraced. Like my whole self feels fully embraced here.
Very good. And what's it like? How do you meet friends there? Like, how do you bump into people? I don't know. Just how are you assimilating that way in terms of
socially? Yeah. What's your social life like? Because it was you and your dog that came. So as a single African-American Black woman of a certain age, what is it like socially?
I'll be honest, I've been busier here socially than I ever was in the States.
Okay.
I'll just be honest. One, I didn't really have time to do all of these things in the States. Like for example, here you see your friends, you're like, hey, let's get together, let's go to lunch. in 2 days, you guys are sitting down for lunch. Whereas like I found like in the States, you know, you be pulling out calendars. It's like, okay, well, what about I can do the third Saturday of this month, but no, I can't. And so, you know, and so it's, you know, there's a lot of that. So, but to answer your question specifically, WhatsApp is one of the key ways. So there's a lot of WhatsApp groups here. And so, for example, I'm in one for single women who retired abroad. That one is more seasoned women. I'm in one for my neighborhood, right? And that's all ages. And so I'm probably in about 5 different WhatsApp groups. And a lot of them, so like I might say, hey, anybody want to go to brunch today? And people would chime in, yeah, where you want to go? That sort of thing. So it's I think because we're all, you know, in the same situation, right, of being expats, we are all very, very much in terms of, hey, let's go do this, and extending the invitation. I run into people in the mall, in the grocery store, walking my dog to daycare, right? Like I just met a woman yesterday, literally walking Brooklyn, who was my Yorkie, to daycare. And we sat and chat and had a good 10-minute conversation. And, you know, we're going to dinner. I'm having oral surgery. So in a couple of weeks when my mouth is healed, right? So it's very easy, at least here in the city, it's extremely easy to make connections and make friends and find your tribe.
And you connecting and meeting up with your sorors down there as well, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So we have you know, we have our pre-interest group, right? So we're not an interest group yet. So let me be very clear, we're not an interest group. But we are certainly meeting and doing things together and bonding on the path to hopefully one day having a chapter here in Panama as well, right? So we can be the first sorority that has a chapter here. You know, as you know, the Alphas have a chapter here, the Omegas have a chapter here, and we would love to be the first sorority with a chapter here.
Shout out to the D9, all the audience out there from D9.
All of them, absolutely.
Much love.
Right.
All right.
So you talked about neighborhoods and that type of thing. Let's switch and sort of talk about housing and where you lived and that process, and, you know, explain to people as far as like, we had the pleasure when we visited in April to come see your beautiful spot with a beautiful view. So talk about when you came in December, or just kind of like the whole process of landing of where you lived and what you chose.
Sure. So in my trip, when I came in November to get my permanent residency, I looked for where I was going to live, right? So at that point, I was looking with the intention of, is this a place I really want to be or not? I had a couple of realtors. Sorry, Charlotte. Had a couple of realtors, right? Who showed me around and showed me different properties. Because of the work that I had done in the previous trips, I kind of knew the area that I wanted to live in, right? Which is Bella Vista, on Avenida Balboa, across from the ocean. Like I knew when I'm in Panama, I want to see the water every single day. I want to hear it. I want to see it. Since I can't get in it, I at least want to hear it and I want to see it. And so when the realtor, this where I live, where you guys came, this is not actually where I wanted to stay. This is not the building. I had no interest in this building because I had my heart set on a different one.
Yes.
And he said, will you at least just look at it?
Okay.
And I was like, all right, fine, I'll look at it. Because he just wouldn't stop with it, like just worrying me to death about just looking at this unit. And I said, okay, fine. And so when he opened the door, and I saw that view, honestly, it was almost a wrap. It was close. It was like this close to being a wrap. And then I walked in and I saw that it had a full-size washing machine and dryer, and then it was a wrap. It was a wrap.
The view and the washer dryer.
Because a lot of places here have the single attached washing machine and dryer, and I had one of those when I lived in an apartment in St. Louis, while I was waiting for my house to be built, and I hated that thing. I just hated it, and I just did not want that. I know it's small, but for me, again, it was something that was important to me.
Mhm.
And so my location, I absolutely love it. I came from Texas. So it's true what they say about Texas, everything is bigger. So I
Right.
needed a larger space. So my apartment is considered large for Panama.
Mhm.
So a lot of the units that I saw, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can live in such a small space.
Mhm.
Just because again, I've been in Texas. I need to stretch out, I need space, and I need the illusion of space, even if it's not really there.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
So hey, I've got a question for you in terms of now that you're an expat, you're not working, you're not doing the corporate thing, the 9 to 5. What's your typical day look like as an expat in Panama?
Or a couple of
Whatever,
days.
Or a
But
couple of days,
yeah.
yeah.
whatever I would like for it to look like, you know, whatever. I mean, on the one hand, I feel like I've become my mother because, I have my little notebook with my doctor's appointments in it,
Okay.
my calendar. Like, well, let me just take a step back. I have to have a calendar now because all my days blend in, right? Because it's not like I
Okay.
get up to go to work, so they just all kind of blended in. So now I live by my calendar. I have to wake up. I'm like, okay, it's Monday. Okay, great. So and I probably shouldn't say I don't have a job because honestly, my job is learning Spanish. So I
Okay.
take
Okay.
Spanish lessons twice a week, and I treat it like my job because I
Mhm.
think it's important to speak the language
Right.
Mhm.
because
Right.
this is a Spanish speaking country. Yes, you can get by with Google Translate, but I just feel like I want to be able to speak the language and I
Mhm.
want to know people talking bad about me too. So, but anyway, so if it's one of those days where I have Spanish, where I have class, I'm paying attention in class an hour and a half. I also on two
And
days a
is
week.
class virtual or are you going?
So it's hybrid. So
Okay.
some days I go, some days I do it online. And then another 2 days a week, I do another class, which is specifically around restaurant Spanish,
Okay.
Oh.
right? So I do that, and that's half an hour. So I do that twice a week as well. So 4 days out of the week, I'm engaged in Spanish lessons, right?
Mhm.
But my day, basically, we get up, we being my dog and we get up. I make sure she's good. She goes to doggy daycare 5 days out of the week. So I walk her to daycare so she can remember she's a dog and hang out with the other dogs.
Right.
I come back, do my lessons. I also study probably on average about an hour and a half a day outside of class, just trying to make sure that I'm
Mhm.
reinforcing what I'm learning.
Right.
Um, I go to lunch on certain days, go to brunch on certain days, go to dinner on certain days. I take an African dance class on Fridays. And so like I'm getting ready to start swimming lessons because I used to wake up every day and walk 5 miles
Mhm.
along the Cinta Costera, which is a wonderful, wonderful area that Panama has developed along the coastline where you can walk, you can exercise. They have all kinds of courts. You can paddleball, basketball, soccer, you name it. But my knees started to say, no, ma'am, you're not
Okay.
going to keep walking these 5 miles. No, ma'am. Even with the cortisone shot, it's like you're going to have to sit down.
Uh-huh.
So I'm switching over to
Swim.
Pilates and swimming,
Okay.
something a little less jarring on my knees. But basically, I know I'm giving you a rambling answer. So just to
No.
sum it up, um, I get my dog straight, get her to daycare. I do some exercise. I do my Spanish lessons. And then I either um, go to lunch, go to brunch, try a new restaurant, um, try a new recipe. I'm actually in the kitchen cooking, I know, right? Those sorts of things. Yeah, and then on certain nights, I go out.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like there was a friend of mine. She has an exhibit at an art museum here, and so we there went for her opening night, and so there's different things that are always happening.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I know when we were there and my jaw was on the floor and just thinking, but Let's talk finances for a bit, because I know that for anybody that's really thinking about, is it, you hear it's cheaper to live if you go leave the country and that type of thing. And you went through a rundown of just some of the expenses and the differences as far as what you're paying now in Panama. And it just really, me and Dice still talk about as far as like, even with Brooklyn, your dog care, hair care, some of those services. So
And Panama's on the American dollar before you go into
Correct.
right.
So one,
So
one
it is a apples to apples comparison as far as the things that you're paying. So run down the list of some of those expenses that you have now that in your Saturday,
even
every
living
day.
expenses too, like cable or
Right.
all of that kind of stuff.
Right. So for me, it is cheaper in Panama.
Mm-hmm.
Than
Now,
that.
Panama,
Yeah.
it can be as cheap or as expensive as you want, right?
Yes.
So you can, for those of you familiar with Miami, right? Star Island, if you want to live a Star Island lifestyle, you absolutely can do that here.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to live the lifestyle. I can't afford the lifestyle.
Right.
So, but for me, it is less expensive here, right? So let's start with my dog. So for your listeners that may have a dog. So in the States, I paid $70 a week for Brooklyn to go to daycare twice a week.
Twice a week.
Twice a week. So it's $70. So y'all can do the math on how much I was paying for a month. Here in Panama, it was $100. It just went up to $120 a month for her to go to daycare unlimited. So if it's 30 days that month, she goes for 30 days. She can go for 30 days, right?
Okay.
So again, in a week and a half or
Right.
2 weeks, I would have paid more in the States than I pay here for her to go for the entire month, right? So 4 days versus 30. For boarding in the States, I paid anywhere from $50 to $60 a night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Here, it's $30 a night,
Okay.
Half
right?
price.
It's half price.
Mm-hmm.
Rooming, could be $60 to $80 in the States. Here, it's $20 to $25, depending on what she's getting done. So if the works is $25 with medicated shampoo and everything.
Right.
Y'all dog moms know what I'm talking about on that one.
Right.
So now let's shift to me. So in my apartment, I don't have a problem sharing. So I have a 2-bed with a den, 2 bathrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, right? I think the equivalent is about 18. I did the math. It was like 1,852 square feet
Okay.
apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm on a higher floor of a high rise, unobstructed view of the ocean. My balcony is humongous,
Yes.
if you will, right? Like I could have a whole dinner party out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I pay here in Panama $19.50.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In Dallas, as an example, I had a 3-bed, 3-bath. I paid $2,500
Right.
for that.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now that did include a $20 pet fee, which I don't have to pay a pet fee in this building.
Mm-hmm.
My utilities on average about $50 a month here,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
give or take about 50 a month. And I have split unit air conditioners in every room. In the States, I paid no less than $150, anywhere
Right.
from $150 to $200 a month for electricity, just for me and my dog.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I still use my same phone plan in the US, so I still have T-Mobile, so that's the same.
Mm-hmm.
Cable here. No, cable's not a good example because I use a box here where I pay
Right.
for cable in the States. So
Okay.
my
Mhm.
cable here is non-existent. I don't pay anything for cable here.
Mm-hmm.
What other utility? Oh,
Wi-Fi,
So
internet.
Wi-Fi. So I pay $45 a month here for broadband, the
Wow.
fastest speed, right? When I was paying upwards, I think it was 115
I'll say
in
over
the
100.
States for something similar.
Mm-hmm.
There are power outages in Panama City. People talk about the providers here, like in the different groups. Hey, is anybody else having, internet out or this or that? That never happens for me, right?
Okay.
And so because it's broadband, right? So I don't have those issues. It's $45 a month. When I was having issues, right, because of the way most apartment buildings or older apartment buildings in Panama City have concrete or cement walls.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was having an issue with my Wi-Fi signal, like
Okay.
in my office.
Mhm.
It wasn't coming, and I called them the next day. They came out. I got a router, problem solved. They emailed me or WhatsApped me, I should say, the next 2 days. Senorita, just want to make sure everything is fine. Is everything
Yeah.
okay? Is everything fine? And I mean, that was just amazing to me.
Right. Right.
So for me, I don't have a car here. I take well, up until yesterday, I took Uber. But I just happened to see the CEO of Uber's comments about that bill. And so I am no longer using Uber, but using something that's Panamanian based, but it's very similar to Uber. I would say all in all, I probably on average spend $15 a month in Uber.
Because most of where you go, you can walk.
I walk.
You're
I
in a
walk.
walkable area.
I'm in a very walkable area. And when I Uber is typically $2, $2.50, $3 to get to where I'm going. So like if it's raining or something, I might Uber. Well, sorry. I
Right.
might take a ride, get a ride share back.
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Very
So
good.
a fraction I use because I've USAA. My homeowners insurance is through USAA. So yeah, it's a lot for me. It's a lot cheaper. I have friends that have 3-bedroom apartments that aren't oceanfront that they may pay $900 to $1,000 a month.
Wow.
So I pay a lot relatively speaking,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mhm.
The average rent here is about $1,200.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So-
But again, I needed to be right by the ocean. Like I literally can hear the waves crashing, and that was important to me, and I was willing to pay premium for that.
Right. Hair, groceries,
So
the fruit man downstairs.
yeah, my fruit man, that's my guy. So food. So American products are expensive, right? Although I was in Dallas in late May.
Prices are.
And prices have gone up in the States as well. So
Yes.
but you do pay a little bit of premium because obviously they're imported in. Panamanian brands are relatively inexpensive. I would say the things that I like to eat here in terms of ground turkey, chicken, those sorts of things are definitely less expensive here.
Okay.
I just go to the market and get it fresh, if you will, which
Right.
was a bit for me. I had to get used to that. Like, I want that chicken right there, right? Fruit. My gosh. So I literally just went to the fruit market
Fruit market.
and got 4 watermelon, like personal size watermelons. They're at 50 cents a piece. I got a cantaloupe that was expensive. That was like 75 cents. I got 2 50-cent mangoes. Apples are like either anywhere from 3 to 5 for $1. Same thing with pears. No, pears are usually $3 for $1. Plums were in season for a while. They were $4 for $1. So fruit is a fraction of what we're paying in the state, with the exception of berries. Berries aren't grown here. So a little 2-pound thing of strawberries can easily be $20 here.
Wow.
Right, depending on where you go. So I don't eat strawberries here. I just eat papaya. There's enough fruit here
Right.
that I can do that. Lettuce, spinach, all of those things are relatively inexpensive. Kale is expensive. Kale is definitely more than what you pay in the States. But you know what? There's all different, there's a lot of other greens that
Right.
I've discovered. So I just don't eat kale.
Mm-hmm.
eat those
Mhm.
other things. I don't know what it's called, but it's good. I just eat those.
That's hilarious.
Mhm.
You know, you can make a budget work here.
Right.
Honestly, you can
Mhm.
make it work. And then my fruit man, you know, you pay a 50-cent premium, he cuts it up for you and slices it for you and gives it to you in a nice little bag. It's just, it's wonderful.
Yep.
Did I miss it or did you talk about the haircut? Your barber.
Oh, I did not. Haircut is
Okay.
$7. So I mean, you know, I pay
I go,
$10 for a cut.
it's 40 bucks for mine. I'm like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that one blew my mind. The haircut and the hair
yeah,
color coming to your
yeah.
house.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And if there's another guy, if, you know, he comes to my house, it's 15. If he comes to my house, you basically pay a $5 upcharge, you know, when they come to your house for a service. But I like to get out. And that's another place where I meet expats is where I get my hair cut.
good
There's a
point.
brother from Atlanta that owns the beauty supply and he has a salon in there as well. So you know, I always meet somebody in there as well.
Right. Right.
Very cool. What advice would you give to Black Americans or anyone considering moving to Panama in terms of just your transition? Were there any ahas, things that surprised you?
Or lesson things you wish you knew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ahead of the move or anything like that?
So first of all, I would tell anybody thinking about becoming an expat, take the trip, sis.
Mhm.
Come on, bruh. Just do it, right?
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Make sure you have your money right.
Yeah.
Okay. Because now I'm on a pensionado visa, so I cannot work because I'm a retiree. I can't work
Right.
here.
Mhm.
I've seen lots of people come here thinking they're going to get a job when there's a couple problems with that. Number one, many professions are off limits
Right.
to
Mhm.
non-Panamanians. So Panamanian government says, nope, to be a doctor, you have to be Panamanian to be a doctor here, right? So if you're a doctor and you're coming over here thinking you're going to practice medicine, you will not.
Mhm.
The second thing to consider is that the Panamanian wage is much less than that in the US. I read someplace that on average they get $700 a month. They make $700 a month. Is their median income,
Mhm.
right? So you're gonna come and let's just say you get a job, you're
Right.
gonna make to you probably pennies, right?
Mhm.
So what I would tell people is if you're gonna come here and your intent is to be a digital nomad, have your job when you get here.
Right.
Right.
Like don't come here looking for a job, have your job secured
Mhm.
because even though it's less expensive here, you still need money.
Right.
Right, right.
And they don't do credit. They want their money
Cash.
Mhm.
and cash money. Give me my money. You can either put it in my hand or you can deposit it into my account, but I'm gonna need cash.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's one thing I would say. And I would say I think that's true no matter what the country is, but I
Right.
know that's especially true here in Panama. Things that you know, that really because I came, you know, in March and then again in July and then in November, right? I'm
Right.
sorry, yeah, November, and I moved in December. So there was not a lot of, there wasn't a lot of aha for me because I
Mhm.
spent a lot of time on the ground. But what was surprising to me, there are a couple things that were surprising to me. Not
Okay.
necessarily all of them good. One is these people have a fascination with their horns. They honk their horns continuously, and it drives me nuts.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like the taxi cabs will honk at you to try to get your attention. Okay, fine. When the light changes, the cars behind you are automatically laying
Oh.
on their horn. Like
Mm.
they just are, I mean, just horn, I just wish the horns would just go away.
Mhm.
Okay.
I don't get it. Like, stop it. It's just so noisy. And it scares Brooklyn. Right?
Yeah. Right.
Um,
Right.
so that's one thing. The second thing is this concept of, I know I gave you my example of customer service with my internet provider. That's where it ends.
Mm.
Like when you go to a store here, the concept of customer service is non-existent. Like
Oh, wow.
you're like, you know, you're at the mall, you go into a store, I expect to be greeted. You know, hey, that acknowledge my presence, acknowledge. Not happening here. Nobody's gonna come over and ask you, do you need help?
Okay.
Nobody's gonna ask you, do you need a fitting room? None of that. They
Ah.
are, and they look at you, they see you, but that's just not how they do it here, right? And
Okay.
so for me, that was extremely off-putting the first couple of times I went to the store. I was like, y'all don't see me. How
Right.
can you miss me? Like, I'm a big girl, hello,
Mhm.
right? And so that took some getting used to for me,
Mhm.
because again, I'm American. I'm just used to a
Right.
certain level of customer service.
Right.
And not to say that they're rude, it's just different.
The way.
It's their way.
Right.
It's
Right.
their way. It's just very, very, very different. In a restaurant, they are welcoming, and they'll come and take your order, they'll check back with you, but like they don't take the social cue that you're ready for the check.
Okay.
Like
Mhm.
you gotta ask them for the check. And then if you ask, and sometimes it's considered rude to ask for the check, but it's like, ma'am,
Got to go.
where to go? Like,
Right. Right.
they don't rush you out like in the States, right? They're not trying to turn that table over to get some more money. So it's like finding that balance
Mhm.
of being like, I appreciate the fact that you are allowing me to sit here and just
Forever.
sit here
Right.
forever. But I really would like the checks so I can pay you and be on my way. So that was very sort of surprising to me
Mhm.
that, you got to ask for the check. And then on the flip side, a reservation is a suggestion. So you have a reservation at 5, okay. You get there at 5 and you're like, I'm here for my reservation. And they're like, okay, have a seat. We'll let you know when your table is ready. And it's like, well, what was the point of the reservation?
Right.
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 So again, I was a little surprised, and I will admit a little taken aback by that initially, but you just kind of
Get used to it.
you get
That's
used to
kind
it.
of
You
the general
realize,
like Panamanian time type thing.
yeah,
Like we
it's
talked
Hey,
about before we started recording, as far as like it's 5-ish, 5 o'clock-ish.
exactly. And I mean, and I'm gonna say this, and hopefully I don't get ridiculed for it, but it's like CP time on steroids. It's
We understand. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
actually more. What's the point? Like, this is only gonna frustrate me.
Right.
So I'm just like, you know what? We just gonna go, we're gonna go with the flow. And because here's the thing, when the food does come, it's delicious,
Right.
Right. Right.
right? When
Right.
you find that shirt, or you find that those shorts, it's gonna be 15-20% cheaper than what you would have paid for in the US. So I
Right.
mean, it works itself out,
Right.
if you will. You just have to have your patience.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that was going to be true in Costa Rica. I didn't realize that was going to be true here in Panama.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, especially Panama City. Being in a
Exactly.
large city, you were expecting it to have some of the more city attributes that you've been used to. Right. Especially from the
Right.
standpoint of time and speed.
Exactly.
No, they just honking the
Exactly.
horns. That's the only thing they want to
It
do
just
quick.
they honking those. I mean, like they have no patience when it comes to driving.
Right.
But let me ask this question. They do like to party though, right?
Oh yes.
So that's a good thing.
Oh yes. I mean, listen, this city comes alive, right? And honestly, like this morning when I was taking Brooklyn for a walk, there's literally a band playing, and there are people going to a concert at 10 o'clock
Wow.
Wow.
a.m. I've never seen such, but I saw it with my own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This city knows how to party.
Yeah.
Okay. Very
Yeah.
good. So
But you can be in it or not in it. So anybody that, for a lot of our audience over 50, considering another country, specifically Panama, would you do it again? And would you do it all over again?
All over again. I absolutely would. I love being in Panama, right? Me and Cante Panama, right?
yeah.
I love Panama. I There's nothing about Panama that I would change.
Wow.
Okay.
I would change my apartment. I would get a dishwasher.
Okay.
But other than that, there's nothing. And quite frankly, I have a woman that comes in once a week and she handles the dishes for me, right? So I've solved for that, but there is absolutely nothing about Panama that I would change. It's a wonderful place. It's been very welcoming to me. The people have been amazing. They humor me with my Spanglish as I'm trying to learn Spanish. They are very patient with me. Even when in retrospect, I've said some things that were not very proper to say, choosing the wrong word and not pronouncing it properly. As you know, a different pronunciation takes a word from meaning a year to a certain body part.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you know,
Right.
they've not laughed in my face, if
Right.
you will. They've very politely said, "Oh, I think you mean."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you're right," type of
The
thing. So,
inye, the
you know,
inye.
exactly, exactly. So, I mean, here's what I would say. If you are interested, visit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm partial to a relocation tour,
Yes.
right? To Black expats in Panama. It's a wonderful tour. Come and explore. Come and see if this is for you. Um, there are so many people moving here, Black Americans that are moving here, African Americans that are here. If this is your tribe, we welcome you. We can't wait to see you. We can't wait to welcome you. There's every Wednesday, I'm sorry, one Wednesday, I think the third Wednesday of the month, we have Welcome Wednesday just for expats that are coming so that you can meet people and start to build your tribe. This is a good spot. Um, I think this is the best place to be. And it's also a good jumping off point, right? If you wanted to explore some of the other countries. A young lady, her and her husband just left here and now they're in Thailand. So they were here for a year, now they're over in Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it's a good way to get the expat experience, but still be on central time zone.
Yes,
And
it's a soft landing.
yes, US dollar, that
Yes,
type of thing. And a good way
yes,
to, instead of just jumping on the other side of the world, a 2 hour flight from Miami, Houston, I mean,
exactly.
do you miss the US? What about family? I know we're coming up close to wrapping up. How is
I
that?
miss my family. I
Right.
Miss your
miss my
family.
family. I miss my family. Um,
That's it.
I absolutely miss my family. I go back once a quarter.
Okay.
Okay.
Right? Because admittedly, I still, I got to see my people. I'm my mother's only child, so I
Mhm.
do go back once a quarter. The intent is to keep going back once a quarter for a couple of days,
Okay.
but I don't envision a scenario where I move back to the United States.
Wow.
Okay.
I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm keeping my passport. I am an American. I'm proud to be an American, but I'm very much at peace
Mm-hmm.
here in Panama. Panama to me is peace.
Okay.
It looks good
My
on you.
cholesterol level has never been so low.
Oh.
Wow. It's good for your health.
I
That
never
is
had
good.
high blood pressure, but literally my cholesterol level went from 190, taking cholesterol medication every single day, to 128.
So now
Wow.
you're not even taking it. You're good.
I take it, but that's a whole nother story.
Okay.
But
Okay. Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
still, that's a big
But that's a
jump.
big positive
that's
change,
a that's
lifestyle.
a that's a huge drop. I think it's the food. I think it's the
Yeah.
lack of stress.
Right.
And of course, because I exercised in the States, so
Mm-hmm.
it has to be the food and a lack of stress.
Right.
Right.
That
Right.
ocean right outside your balcony every day.
Oh my goodness, I wake up listening to the literally the sound of the ocean wakes me up.
Very. Hey, that's the alarm clock I want.
That's right. That's right.
It's amazing.
Oh,
Right.
wonderful. I
I think
think
that's it. I think
That's it.
I know.
we've answered all our questions.
And just from the standpoint of sharing with anybody that really wants to talk to somebody boots on the ground in Panama and still new. I mean, from the standpoint,
From the fans.
I know. Um, I mean, you're a little over 6 months in, so this is an unfiltered view. And you know, we love you, Erica. We appreciate you sharing and being so open with the
Hopefully-
experience. And you
Hopefully
know,
we'll see you in October.
yeah,
We'll do
we're
back-
making our return trip a little later this year, so we'll definitely look you up.
I look forward to it.
Anybody in the comments, if you all have some questions, we can filter. I'm sure Erica would be open to a part 2 if any of our
Absolutely.
people, or, you know, you can scan the comments as they come in, but I'm sure you're available to answer some questions, or we can jump back on and have another, you know, redo or part 2. But we really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your story, your transition, and your joy, because we see it on your face of living in
I
Panama.
agree.
Love it. Love it.
It just stays. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. And for those of you sort of watching this, if you have any questions, you know, you want to talk to somebody, you know, again, I'm 55. I'm proud of it. So, you know, if you think I can be helpful to you, don't hesitate, you know, to reach in, and I will do my absolute best. Jice, Glenn, thank you so much for this channel. Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yeah,
It's been fun. Thank
And
you
I can't
so
wait
much.
to see you guys in October.
that's right.
Absolutely.
We'll be there.
So,
All right. Well, thanks, Quench Crew. We'll see you on the next video.
all right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.